Hey everybody, this is Dave the Bald Guy, putting the Bald Guy into baldguylimo.com. Now, I know it's been a few weeks since I've shared a recording. It's been a few weeks because we went on vacation for like 2 weeks and we went everywhere from Ashland to Rockaway Beach to Crescent City, California to a ghost town called Golden, even to Crater Lake National Park. I mean, we went everywhere. So I filmed all that and it'll be multiple episodes of Dave's Family RV. So you have that to look forward to. Right now I'm doing something a little bit different. I discovered not that long ago a channel called Hollywood Graveyard, done by a guy who's literally showing video of Hollywood celebrities' tombstones. And it got me thinking, you know, that's kind of cool. Why don't I travel and look up the graves of famous people who have been buried in Oregon? There's actually quite a few. So we're going to take a break from the normal and we're going to do Oregon Graveyard, Oregon celebrities or celebrities who are buried in actual Oregon. So I went up and down Interstate 5 and traveled around here and around there and got some interesting history. You guys are going to like this. And if you like it, let us know in the comments how much you like it. And push that click and push that subscribe button, which is up, down. I don't know where it is in relation to how you're watching this, because I watch YouTube mostly on my TV and it's totally different than the computer or the phone. Anyway, that's that. Enjoy yourselves. Hope you like it. We begin in Forest View Cemetery in Forest Grove, Oregon, in what looks like the worst kept cemetery I have ever been to. We find the grave of Nellie Owens Curry. You may not know her name, but you know the face of the actress who played her on TV. There were 3 girls that were the inspiration for Nellie Oleson and the Little House on the Prairie books, and Nellie Owens Curry was one of them. She had a little brother named Willie, and both her parents ran the Mercantile in Walnut Grove. Around 1883, the family moved to California, probably down the Oregon Trail, and in 1891 they went to Tillamook, Oregon, where Nellie taught school, and in 1893 she married Henry Francis Curry. They moved to Bay City, Oregon, had 3 children, eventually moved again to Rainier, Oregon in 1899, and eventually settled in Forest Grove. There is no proof one way or another that Nellie and Laura Ingalls Wilder ever saw each other again after the Ingalls family left the town in 1879. Nellie died in 1949 in Forest Grove, Oregon of unknown causes. Her brother Willie went blind from a firecracker explosion and attended a school for the blind. He got married and he too had 3 children. We traveled to Grants Pass to Hillcrest Memorial Park Cemetery. Up to the top of the hill is the grave of legendary television actor Kevin Hagen. Born in Chicago, Hagen's parents were ballroom dancers. His father ended up deserting the family, and Hagen was raised by his mother and grandmother. At age 15, he relocated to Portland, Oregon, where one of his aunts got a teaching job. He attended Jefferson High School and eventually went to Oregon State University in Corvallis. By the time he was 27, he was given a guest role starring in a 1950s version of Dragnet. Other appearances included Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, The Twilight Zone, Mission Impossible, MASH, The Rifleman, Lost in Space, Quincy, Simon & Simon, and Knots Landing. But he will always be remembered as playing Doc Brown on the TV series Little House on the Prairie. By 1992, he moved to Grants Pass, where he performed in concerts and dinner theaters, including the one-man show A Playful Dose of Prairie Wisdom. By 2004, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer and died July 9th of 2005. Also in the Hillcrest Cemetery, a quick drive to the Veterans section. Just past the monument on the other side of the middle tree lies the grave of Karl Barks. Karl Barks was an American cartoonist and painter. He is best known for his work in Disney comic books, working on Donald Duck stories, and is the creator of Scrooge McDuck. So famous was his work, before the era of writers' credits, fans just called him the Good Artist. In 1987, he was one of 3 inaugural inductees of the Will Eisner Comic Book Hall of Fame. He retired from comic books in 1966 and focused on painting. In July of 1999, He was diagnosed with leukemia and passed away about a year later at the age of 99. We are now in Coos Bay, Oregon at Sunset Park Memorial, where we see the final resting place of Stephen Prefontaine. Prefontaine was a phenom in every sense of the word. His rise to stardom helped to usher in the running boom of the 1970s. When Prefontaine got to high school in 1965, he joined the cross-country team. By the time he was a senior, he had 40 colleges around the country trying to recruit him. He chose the University of Oregon and dominated cross-country the entire time he was there. In his 4 years at Oregon, Prefontaine never lost a collegiate race at 3 miles, 5,000 meters, 6 miles, or 10,000 meters. In 1975, after attending a post-meet party, Prefontaine left to drive home. His 1973 convertible crossed the center line, jumped the curb, and flipped, trapping him underneath it. A local man was first on the scene and reported he found Prefontaine flat on his back, still alive but pinned beneath the wreck. By the time medics arrived, he was pronounced dead. It had been reported that his blood alcohol content was found to be 0.16. The official cause of death? Traumatic asphyxiation. We are now in Springfield, Oregon, not that far from Eugene, to visit Art Barr at Springfield Memorial Gardens. Barr was an amazingly talented professional wrestler who got his start at Portland Wrestling. While attending Oregon State University, he became an accomplished amateur wrestler, having become a 4-time district champion and 2-time state champion. However, he later dropped out of college to tend to his wife when she became pregnant. Barr began working in a steel mill during the day while he was receiving training to become a wrestler from his father Sandy Barr, his older brother Jesse Barr, and friend Matt Boren. He wrestled under the name Beetlejuice and was a fan favorite. By the early 1990s, he found himself working in Mexico for the AAA promotion. He partnered with the late great Eddie Guerrero, and together they became one of the most hated tag teams in Lucha Libre. In November of 1994, Art Barr was found dead in his home. Some reports say it was heart failure, while others say it was unknown circumstances. Barr came from a true wrestling family. Here's a picture of a young Art Barr in the middle, his brother Jesse, who wrestled as Jimmy Jack Funk in the WWF, and his father Sandy Barr, who was an accomplished wrestler and worked in Portland Wrestling as a referee and promoter. His father, Sandy Barr, is buried in an unmarked grave next to him. Sandy was a well-known wrestler, referee, and promoter in the Northwest spanning decades. He passed away June 2, 2007 of a sudden heart attack. With him went the last piece of the original Portland Wrestling. We are now at Crescent Grove Cemetery in Tigard, Oregon, next to Washington Square Mall. Here we find Roddy Piper. He was one of the most hated men in the history of professional wrestling, but you couldn't tell that to the people in Oregon. He was a fan favorite and was loved across the Northwest, no matter what he did to Hulk Hogan. The feeling was mutual. He loved the Portland area so much, he made it his permanent home. Born Roderick Toombs in Canada, he left home at age 15 after having a falling out with his father. He picked up odd jobs at local gyms and ran errands for several wrestlers. He learned to play the bagpipes and served a tour of duty in the Canadian Army. Piper was a boxer and even won the Golden Gloves Championship. Before long, he started wrestling professionally and traveled the world. After he became a hit in Portland, he ended up in the World Wrestling Federation, where he eventually became the nemesis of Hulk Hogan. They even main evented the first WrestleMania together at Madison Square Garden. After wrestling, he became known for acting, including the movies They Live and Hell Comes to Frogtown. He had a reoccurring role in the TV series It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He was also second cousins to the famous Hart family of wrestlers. On July 31st, 2015, Roddy Piper died in his sleep at the age of 61 at his summer residence in Hollywood, California. His death certificate cites a cardiopulmonary arrest caused by hypertension, listing a pulmonary embolism as a contributing factor. I always thought it was a smart move for the Grim Reaper to come for Roddy Piper in his sleep. Had he been awake, there would have been a hell of a fight. Riverview Cemetery in Portland is famous for several graves, including a monument erected for the only Oregonian to die on the Titanic. Frank Warren was a Portland resident and millionaire. He made his fortune in the salmon canning industry. Frank and his wife Anna boarded the Titanic and were traveling first class. They were returning from a 3-month trip to Europe to celebrate their 40th anniversary and were the only first-class passengers from Oregon on the ship. Anna survived the sinking of the Titanic after Frank helped her onto a lifeboat. She thought he was going to join her, but then he stepped back onto the ship to help others to get to safety. His body was never recovered. Frank's wife Anna is buried near him. It is said she suffered from Great Depression following the sinking of the Titanic and the loss of her husband. Today, she would have been diagnosed with PTSD. She joined her husband in the great beyond in 1925. Literally, the next row over is the Weinhardt family. Portland's most famous beer maker passed away in 1904 at the age of 74. His brewery was in operation until 1999. Today it is owned and operated by the Coors Brewing Company. A brief walk will take you to Lyle Alzado. He was an American football player famous for his intense and intimidating style of play. Alzado played 15 seasons, splitting his time amongst the Denver Broncos, the Cleveland Browns, and finally, the Los Angeles Raiders, with whom he won a championship in Super Bowl 28. Following his failure to receive a college scholarship offer, Alzado ended up playing for a junior college for 2 years. He was asked to leave the team, he later contended, for befriending a black teammate. During his college years, Alzado participated in amateur boxing, and he even made it to the semifinals of the 1969 Midwest Golden Gloves boxing tournament. In 1979, he fought an exhibition match against Muhammad Ali. Alzado was one of the first major U.S. sports figures to admit to using anabolic steroids. In the last year of his life, as he battled against a brain tumor that eventually caused his death, Alzado asserted that his steroid abuse directly led to his fatal illness. A bit of a hike to the top of the cemetery, and you will meet Portland's most famous deceased citizen. Virgil Earp was not only Wyatt Earp's brother, but he was also at the gunfight at the OK Corral. He was both Deputy U.S. Marshal and Tombstone, Arizona City Marshal when he led his brothers Morgan, Wyatt, and Doc Holliday in a confrontation with outlaw cowboys at the gunfight at the OK Corral on October 26, 1881. They killed brothers Tom and Frank McClary and Billy Clanton. All three Earp brothers had been targets of repeated death threats made by the cowboys who were upset by the Earps' interference in their illegal activities. All four lawmen were charged with murder by Ike Clanton, who had run from the gunfight. During a month-long preliminary hearing, the judge exonerated the men, concluded that they had been performing their duty. But 2 months later, on December 28th, friends of the slain outlaws retaliated, ambushing Virgil. They shot him in the back, hitting him with 3 shotgun rounds, shattering his left arm and leaving him permanently maimed. The cowboys suspected were let off for lack of evidence. His brother, Morgan Earp, was assassinated in March of 1882. Charges against those suspected were dismissed on a technicality. Wyatt Earp was then appointed as Deputy U.S. Marshal to replace Virgil. He concluded that he could not rely on civil justice and assembled a federal posse that included their brother Warren and set out on a vendetta to kill those who they felt were responsible. Virgil left Tombstone to recuperate from his wounds in Colton, California, where his parents lived. Virgil married before he left to serve in the Union Army during the American Civil War. When he returned, his wife and child had left. He held a variety of other jobs throughout his life, though he's primarily worked in law enforcement. In 1898, Virgil learned that his first wife and their daughter were living in Oregon and reestablished contact with them. After suffering from pneumonia for 6 months, Virgil died on October 19, 1905. His daughter, who was living in Portland, had Virgil's body transferred to Portland for burial. He was most famously portrayed by Sam Elliott in the movie Tombstone. We are now at Lincoln Memorial, and I'm a little lost. You'd think I'd know this place a little bit here, but honestly, this place is huge. And this newer section, all the tombstone and monuments are absolutely gorgeous. Just beautiful. Okay. The nice lady at the office said it's right around here. No, that's not it. Okay. Dear Lord, how rich do you have to be buried in something like that? Look at this one here. Oh my gosh. My house doesn't cost this much. Honestly. Alright, back to keep looking. You know, it took me almost an hour. Finally found her. Tina Laeau Wiseman was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, and was known as the host of the Cinemax television series Hotel Erotica, and films such as Kickboxing Academy and Hey DJ. She was also an accomplished singer. Her song To the Club was released in 2004 and quickly topped dance charts worldwide, and was in magazines as the club track of the year. She also inspired her fiancé, John Jacobs, to make the song Gamer Chick, and her avatar, Island Girl, was seen in that video. She died in the Bahamas on February 20th, 2005, from a pulmonary edema due to influenza. Her death inspired the developers of the game Entropia Universe to create a memorial island in her honor. We are now at Mount Calvary Cemetery in Portland. This is literally the most haunted cemetery I have ever been to. Seriously, when you go to visit, bring a voice recorder. The EVPs are pretty cool. Here we see a beautiful old mausoleum for the Keating family. Lawrence Keating was an American actor, best known for his roles on The George Burns and Gracie Allen Show, and next-door neighbor Roger on Mr. Ed, which he played from 1961 until his death of leukemia in 1963. Lastly, we end our story in Beaverton, Oregon, at Ahuvai Shalom Cemetery, with the sad and tragic story of Rebecca Schaeffer. Schaeffer was born in Eugene, Oregon. She initially had aspirations to become a rabbi, but she began modeling during her junior year in high school. She appeared in department store catalogs and television commercials, and as an extra in television movies. In August of 1984, her parents allowed her to move to New York City by herself to pursue a modeling career. While working in New York, she attended a professional children's school. She also had a short-term role in the daytime soap opera Guiding Light. She continued modeling and also worked as a waitress. She appeared on the cover of 17 magazine, which caught the attention of television producers who were casting for the comedy My Sister Sam, starring Pam Dauber. Schaeffer won the role, and the series was initially a hit, but was canceled after season 2. After the show, Schaeffer had supporting roles in TV movies. In July of 1989, Schaeffer was preparing for an audition for The Godfather 3, when 19-year-old Robert Bardo knocked on her door. When she opened it, he shot and killed her in her doorway. He had been stalking her for 3 years, but this was before any anti-stalking laws had ever been passed. He got her address from the California DMV records, which were considered public information at the time. As of this recording, Bardo is still serving a life sentence.